Hello and welcome to the Oak Spring podcast, where we celebrate the legacy of Mrs. Bunny Mellon through the work of the Oak Spring Garden Foundation. I'm Chris Stafford and this is Season 2, Episode 8. On this month's episode, our topic is From Seed to Sovereignty, Stories of Farming, Art and Community. In just a moment, we'll be talking to Ira Wallace about her work with southern speed exposure and how she has spent a lifetime with her interest in seed saving, sustainable agriculture and food sovereignty. She's also involved in other cooperatives such as Twin Oaks and the Acorn Community Farm. And then later on in the programme, we'll be hearing from Melissa Dessar, whose interest in ecology and farming has led her now to running her own non-profit organisation in northern Florida. And also, she's an artist in her spare time. So we'll be hearing about that and how her work at Oak Spring has inspired now how she paints and the materials that she uses in her artwork. So all of that later on in the programme. We'll also be talking to the Director of Programmes, Danielle Eady, for her segment, Continuum. But first, let's hear from Ira Wallace. Ira, welcome to the Oak Spring podcast. Thank you for taking time to do this.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Well, tell us a little bit about where you are now, because I understand you're not a Virginian, but you've been here quite a while now, so you're an adopted Virginian.
Yes, indeed. I've lived in Virginia for years, so most of my adult life. I'm here at Acorn Community Farm in Louisa, Virginia. It's the home of Southern Exposure Seed Exchange with an Acorn Community, where I'm a member and where I work with our new seed growers and a lot of the educational programs that we have at Southern Exposure, and write about home gardening and seed saving as one way we as individuals can to continuing genetic diversity in our food plants.
And what is your background originally, Ira, before you moved to Virginia?
Well, I've been interested in, co-ops and community and seed saving as an act of independence with gardeners. I started when I was in college and took a field botany class and another taxonomy one just for fun. And when we started looking to live in the country in a co-op farm, I got involved as a volunteer with the North Carolina Botanical Gardens, and it happened to be at the time when Kerr Lake and literally, miles and acres were going to be of plants, native plant habitat was going to be put under this lake. And so all kinds of volunteers did plant rescue and removal. And that's sort of when I realized this is a big problem going on as we industrialize. And I was hooked.
What was your childhood background?
Well, I grew up with my grandmother because my mother passed away when I was quite young. And my grandmother had a big garden in our backyard in Florida. And with, especially there, winter gardening was sort of emphasized because that was fall. Winter to spring was a better season for growing than the heat of summer. And I just assumed it was a part of what everyone did. And when my grandmother passed away when I went to college, and as something to sort of anchor me to my roots, involved with a group of people at the college who were making a student garden, vegetable garden, and volunteering at one of the small organic farms near there. So that kind of got me started. And then I ran into the Savers Exchange, which was just starting as a citizen-run sharing organization, saving seeds and sharing seeds with people. And that was a long time ago, 1974.
And what kind of seeds were you first saving? And
Well, there were two things. When I ran into the North Carolina Botanical Garden, it got me interested in native plants and herbs and things like that. But as a person very involved in the early organic movement, having heirloom organic seeds that we consider to be more nutrient dense available to gardeners, uh, exchanging those was really important. And especially as we went along and hybrids took over a lot of the commercial space. So,
tell us how that evolved into, the bigger picture of sustainable agriculture and what you saw as your goals then in those earlier days.
well, in the earlier days, it was about looking at how to produce food in a way that took care of the land, kept built up the nutrients in the soil rather than uh, depleting soil and using artificial inputs. So it was able to recycle nutrients. I remember things like uh, working, with the municipality in Chapel Hill to collect leaves and have composting operation available to citizens who are gardeners and that sort of thing. And since modern life didn't require gardening as a part of what people did to have their food, helping people see how they could fit it into their busy life and how their actions made a difference in what was available for the future.
Do you see a shift then, Ira, with awareness of the need to be more self-sustaining and growing our own food again?
Yes, many people are finding that a lot of the diseases of modern life might be associated with having food that has more calories and less other nutrients available. And a lot of these heirloom varieties are different in that way, in that they have a higher percentage of nutrients to calories. And just taste is something that's really important in maintaining heirloom varieties and maintaining the genetic diversity that they represent.
And this, of course, leads to the all important topic of food sovereignty. And I want to talk to you about that, Ira, because clearly this is the mission, everything from seed saving to the ultimate food sovereignty that we know today. For our listeners, would you explain, please, what food sovereignty is, what it means to you?
Well, I think of food sovereignty as who ultimately of the food that you eat. And in modern society, that has become more and more the purview of large petrochemical companies that have bought up all kinds of small family breeding and producing companies. And we don't know it because they keep the names of all the small companies, 4 or 5 large companies who also specialize a lot in petro for agriculture, uh, own and produce many of the varieties that we get. And they also rely a lot on hybrids, which are not friendly to seed saving. And it's important when uh, food is so basic that at least a basic amount of it be maintained and available to people, not necessarily being caught up in the economic uh, trials of our time.
And of course, the work that you do at Southern Seed Exposure embraces all of these things, and I want to talk about their goals. Perhaps you could start with how the organization began.
Well, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange was started by our founder, Jeff McCormick, who was involved in the early Seed Savers exchange. It was and is a member driven organization. And we specialize, Jeff did when he started, in varieties particularly well suited to the Southeast and other humid climates. And he had training in pollination ecology. So he did some research, for example, in the early days that pointed out that heirlooms are different than more modern ones in that the style or the female part of the flower is sticking out, is kind of extruded. Uh, so it's waving out in the air and saying to the pollinators, come and get us and mix up the genes so that we have more diversity going into the future. And the more modern ones, they were down in the flower and hardly without extreme effort on the part of the gardener, likely to, for example, and making that kind of information available to gardeners and small farmers so that they could use it in how they went about their seed saving practices, whether they wanted to have a land race or a mixed population. They're trying to have enough space for that particular variety to breed true to itself and continue that variety largely as it was developed 100 years or so.
Can you give us a sense of the number of varieties of seeds that you have there?
We have over 800 varieties that we maintain in our seed banks. Well, probably closer to 1,200 when you consider things that we haven't ever offered, as commercial varieties. And we try to have so available. And how we maintain those is working with a network of seed savers and small seed companies to produce all these varieties, and each of them is grown not every year, but every 3 to 5 years, and maintained in our frozen gene bank for small seeds and our refrigeration and humidity control seed areas, which have been converted out of uh, tractor trailers that were refrigerated before, but now have many splits and dehumidifiers. Because you hear these stories of varieties that are like Methuselah, the 1,000 year old palm that was grown from seeds because it was in a particularly dry area. Well, we're in the southeast, so it's not going to be that dry, but we can maintain conditions that have those varieties available. And we try to offer in our catalog on our website and at events about seed saving, so that farmers and gardeners throughout our region can save their own seeds. And to have a community have more control of its seeds, not need to save every kind of seed, but people do need to take something that they care about and want continued, that's open pollinated, that is a population that if you grow the seeds in isolation from other types of seeds that would cross with them, will have something pretty similar to the parent varieties. And so uh, that can be with brassicas or squash, like a quarter of isolation, which is to say you should only grow one that has the same genus and species name. Uh, but you could have two if you use isolation cages, either commercially available or that you make with or with Protect Net that you use to keep small insects out of your garden areas. Um, so, and you are meticulous with your records and live in storage so that because you sometimes have two tomatoes and they look different when they come off the vine. But I'm going to tell you something. Tomato seeds next year look awfully much like each other. So good labeling is really important.
Yeah, so I can imagine. And of course, this year has been so incredibly wet in Virginia. Have you seen any changes in the way that your plants have behaved this year?
Well, yes. I mean, because we have variations in the weather uh, all of all the time, but at least compared to the records that we're keeping, this is uh, more wet than usual, and the temperatures got warmer earlier and then cooled off again, which is confusing for the plants because they sort of take day length and temperature to affect how and when they have pollen ready. And this has been a tough one for them. And also, uh, if it means as a seed saver that when you have seeds barely dry enough to bring in, you need to harvest them and put them under cover to finish drying, or you're likely to get fungal diseases in the seeds themselves.
Now, as well as Southern Seed Exposure, you're also, I believe, involved in other cooperatives such as Acorn Community Farm and Twin Oaks. Tell us about your roles there, Ira.
Well, I live at Acorn Community Farm now. I've lived here since 1993. But before that, I spent 10 years as a member of Twin Oaks Community. And both Acorn and Twin Oaks are income sharing communities doing experiments in economic justice, I guess. How can you share more resources than people are used to, like car sharing and land sharing? And so we live together on a piece of land in several houses and maintain uh, a common business, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, that we also cooperate with other farmers who are less involved than living here, but who work cooperatively to produce all the seeds that we sell through the website and our seed racks in stores and our catalog. It's a lot of experimenting, as some of these things in years gone by might have been uh, a regional kind of thing that was informally shared, but we try to make this more a part of the organization of how our farm and um, is organized.
What is a typical day for you like, Ira?
Well, I'm an elder in the community. I'm 77, so it's different than what it used to be. I do more uh, and writing and outreach than I used to, but I still do small garden projects like maintaining uh, some of our flowers, like Tina James Evening Primrose, uh, that are fun and that have really good teaching abilities, because many people haven't noticed plants before that blossom in the evening and are pollinated by moths and other pollinators that come out when dusk hits. And these have these beautiful blossoms that open quite quickly once, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, uh, in the late spring and early summer. Um, so I work with things like that and writing gardening books, geared toward organic practices, and adding seed saving is one of the things that is a goal for the gardeners uh, to have in their practice.
And finally, given the importance of the work that you do and have done for many years now, what would your message be to younger generations of how critical this work is?
Well, what I say to young gardeners with is learn about what it takes to maintain your uh, vegetables from seed to seed, and take at least one or two varieties that are important to you and adopt them and them into the future so that they're there for your grandchildren as well as someone has saved them so that you have them in your life as well. And that it's important to have these be a part of the community uh, the larger community. Things like seed libraries, having small farmers maintain a variety that's important to them, like uh, something like growing popcorn or cornmeal in addition to their vegetables, that these practices are a part of maintaining control over our food supply in our local communities.
Ira, thank you very much for this and all the work that you do. And we really appreciate you taking time to come on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having us and for sharing this information with your listeners. It's maintaining control of our food and sharing that with other gardeners and eaters is an important part of having food sovereignty as we the future.
Joining me now for this month's Continuum is the Director of Programs, Danielle Eady. Danielle, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me back, Chris. So today I am really excited that we have Mel and Ira on the podcast, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to tell a little bit about how they both tie directly into the work that we're doing here at Oak Spring. They have a really special story of their involvement with our biocultural conservation farm that I just wanted to take some time and share with our audiences. So Melissa Desaw is a visual artist, farmer, ecologist based in Florida, and her first residency was in 2023. She came for a 5-week interdisciplinary residency to work on printmaking and drawing, and also explored some other mediums that I think she's going to talk about in the episode today. But while she was here, because she is, of course, a farmer, she was very interested in the work of our biocultural conservation farm and spent a lot of time there and getting to know Christine, the farm director. And they found that they shared Ira Wallace as somebody who is kind of a luminary, a guiding light for their work as farmers. And from there, Mel also thought to connect Christine with the Heirloom Collard Project, which is a project that Ira Wallace started. And the idea behind the Heirloom Collard Project is that there are many families in the Southeast that have collard green seeds in their families. However, because these people don't, some of them don't have the resources or the space anymore to be saving the seeds, the Heirloom Collard Project was set up specifically to connect individuals with farms and sites where seed saving can be done. Collards are a traditional food in the Southeast, a really important crop that was grown for many generations. And there's over 60 different varieties that the Heirloom Collard Project has taken on to steward and share. And Oak Spring was growing and has grown about 5 to 6 different collard varieties to contribute to this project. So I just wanted to take a few minutes, share that story about how Mel and Ira were connected to us, and this special project that's one we take pride in and shows how we can help share the work of other organizations and communities through seeds. So I'm looking forward to hearing the next interview, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danielle. Yes, we'll be talking to Melissa shortly, but for this month, that's our Continuum, which I love that title you came up with for this, Danielle, because Oak Spring really is all about continuum. And this has been a very busy summer for you on that very project of continuum, really.
Yes, absolutely. I like the title too, and thinking about the ways that we're an Inuit and a contact for different organizations and people who come through here that go on to share projects and stories elsewhere.
And lots more happening this summer. Is there anything that you want to add to our upcoming events?
Yes, as always, summer is a really busy time here. Going into August, we have quite the roster of short courses. We have 4 classes back to back. And then the thing that we're all really getting excited for and gearing up for is our big community festival that will actually be at the end of September. And that's kind of a family fun focused event with plant walks, live music, food trucks, lots of activities to engage people of all ages.
You mentioned how August is going to be a busy month with residential short courses, and the number of topics of classes that you have, everything from gardening with summertime perennials. Natural dyes is a really big thing now, isn't it, with Oak Spring? So many more people are getting to know how to use natural dyes by being at Oak Spring.
Yeah, it's been really exciting to see the number of artists who come here, some with experience with natural dyes and some without, who come as a resident, especially those who are here now and who will be here in August at the time that those natural dye plants are ready to be harvested. And they have this opportunity to work with a whole new medium has been a really exciting aspect of the program.
And basket weaving too. When was that introduced?
Yeah, we're really excited about the basket weaving class that's taught by Jess Clark. So this will be the first year that we host a basket weaving class. That said, we have a long tradition of baskets at our site. So Mrs. Mellon was an avid basket collector. We actually have a room called the Basket House that is full of Mrs. Mellon's old baskets. And that's actually just one small portion of the basket collection she had at her various properties around the world in London, New York, Nantucket, many other places. From my understanding is that many of those places also had a basket room or a basket closet. So deep history of baskets that we are excited to explore with Jess Clark.
And there's also going to be an immersive library course. Is that new or is that a recurring course?
That's a recurring course. So that's taught by Amy Myers, who formerly led the Yale Center for British Art in New Haven, and Teresa O'Malley, who was at the National Gallery of Art for a number of years. And the focus of the class is really mining and utilizing the library collection, looking at materials that relate to the early days of America, from early 1700s kind of period, looking at representations of plants and landscapes at that time.
And we should also remind everyone to check the website, osgf.org, because that's where you find applications for upcoming courses, programs, one of which is the application for the 2026 Plant Science and Plant Conservation Sabbatical Program that's been extended to September the 2nd. Now, this program is for established plant scientists and provides them with a 2 to 3 month stay at Oak Spring and a $15,000 grant. So there's lots of incentive there if plant science and plant conservation is your thing. Danielle, that's a huge gift.
Yes, it is. That's a program that we are currently in the second year of offering, and we're very excited to host 3 more sabbatical awards next year. And as you said, it's quite a substantial gift in terms of the grant as well as the time here. 2 to 3 months really is enough time to settle in and become part of the day-to-day workings here. So we are really excited to continue that program.
And as I mentioned, everything is on the website, osgf.org, where you can apply for these courses and a lot more programs here at Oak Spring. Anything to add from our program director, Danielle?
I think that's it. That's what we have looking ahead for now. And of course, there will be more classes and workshops that we will be releasing through the fall. And we'll soon even be releasing our classes for 2026.
And of course, they can sign up for the newsletter, which includes all these courses and programs too. And that's programs at osgf.org. Don't forget, you can always find us online and by email, program@osgf.org. Thank you so much, Danielle. We'll see you back here in September for the next continuum.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Chris.
Melissa joins me now. Melissa, welcome to the Oak Spring podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
And how many times have you been to Oak Spring now?
3 times now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Then you've discovered things that you didn't know about before you came to Oak Spring. Tell us about those, particularly the working with dye.
Yeah, so the first time I came to Oak Spring, I believe it was 2021, and it was the 5-week residency, which is such an incredible amount of open space and time to just, do whatever your creative spirit calls you to do. And I had ideas. I even shipped a box of books and had some plans for what I was going to do. And most of that didn't end up happening because I think it was the second day that I was there, I volunteered at the farm, and Ginger had just started working there recently, and she was learning about making indigo dyes. And so we tagged along and harvested some indigo and watched the process unfold over about a week of turning the plants into this beautiful indigo pigment. And then I discovered the garden that was there and all the interesting pigment and fiber plants that were available. And there was a few books around. And so I just got really interested in botanical pigments and ended up spending most of my time there experimenting with all the different stuff that was growing around the property and seeing if they made interesting inks, and ended up making a really beautiful palette and creating most of my work that was there with these paints and not the watercolor paints or anything else that I had brought. So that was really fun and unexpected, and has changed how I approach my art permanently.
I was going to ask about that. How has it impacted your creative, your palette, your creative palette? Now it's that much wider now that you have plant dyes to add to your repertoire.
Yeah, I honestly have not touched my commercial watercolor paints, well, very infrequently. So I was really hooked on that. And when I got back from Oak Spring, I kept exploring with all the plants back home. I'm in Florida, so it's the Southeast, and we have some similar plants, but we have quite a few different plants. So I just kept experimenting and playing and was really drawn to it, and then learned how to make actual watercolor paints and not just inks, because it was a little more of a process and I needed a few more supplies. And then other people just started seeing what I was doing just through sharing on social media and showing friends, and were really drawn to it. And I started getting asked if I would do a workshop or teach some kids or adults how to do it. And so, at first I had a little bit of nervousness doing it because I didn't feel very skilled in it. It was something I had just picked up and was experimenting with, but it's kind of evolved. And now I've regularly been doing workshops and teaching people how to do it. Everything from really informal stuff with kids, like just wandering out in the gardens and smashing mulberries onto paper, all the way to a half-day workshop where artists will come from all over and spend half a day with me learning about how to do it. And most of my work has been using these natural pigments, and only occasionally using some additional ones when I can't have the right color I want. So yeah, it's permanently affected how I approach my art, and I love it. And it seems to resonate with other folks too.
Well, your background is very interesting. You've come from ecology into agriculture, now as an artist. How much of your time is spent as an artist compared to what all the other things you do on the farm?
Yeah, art is really just my fun side hobby. So I try to make as much time for it as possible. But, I spend most of my waking hours at my work and taking care of life. But art, I like to doodle at least once a day in the morning for a few minutes, or in the evening before I go to bed, just to practice. And then some weekends I'll spend a few hours working on things. So it kind of ebbs and flows. I keep it as a hobby and not a career or something that has to keep me alive. So I don't get to spend as much time as I want, but I do feel like I give myself plenty of time in the spare minutes and hours of days. And then, of course, going to residencies like Oak Spring. It seems it's a good balance. It kind of complements the work that I do.
So no commercial pressure, then. You can really enjoy it as a hobby.
Yes. Yeah. I do occasionally sell my stuff, and I've accepted specific commission work that I really resonate with and enjoy doing, but I don't have to. So I have 100% flexibility to choose not to sell art or choose not to do a commission or a workshop. So that kind of keeps the pressure off and the creativity, in my opinion, higher than it would be if I had to really just produce art and sell it.
Let's talk about how your agricultural, your farming background began, Mel, because you say you're in Florida. Is that originally where you're from? Is that home?
Nope. Actually, I was born and raised in Canada. Spent a lot of my childhood in Western Canada and Alberta, and then high school and my early undergraduate years in Southern Ontario. And then I moved to Florida in 2004 after I got my undergraduate degree in biology. And I really honestly just did it because of the weather. I've never loved long northern winters, so I just wanted to get somewhere that it was hot. And I found a really good job working for the University of Florida, doing some biological field research, and was able to just figure out ways to stay here and continue working for the university for many years. And then got my master's degree also at the University of Florida in interdisciplinary ecology. And then, met my husband now, obviously back then my future husband, ended up buying a house and, long story, starting a nonprofit and just really established roots here. And so I've been in Florida, what did I say, 2004? So it's been about 20 years or so.
And so tell us about how the farming came about then, from biology to, or ecology into farming itself, and your interest in seed saving. Where did that originate?
Mm-hmm. So a good friend of mine, probably back in, not too long after I got to Gainesville, actually, maybe like 2005, 2006, got me interested in this nonprofit group called Slow Food. And a lot of listeners might be familiar with that. It's a national nonprofit, but there's a lot of local chapters all around the country, and they work on issues related to food, whatever that may be. So it could be people that are interested in preserving old varieties of food, or they want to connect their community to local food sources, or it could be through seed saving, gardening, whatever. And she started a chapter in Gainesville, and that got me really interested in thinking about local food. I had honestly never thought about food in any deep way at that point in time, other than you need to eat it to survive. And, I had dabbled in being a vegetarian for a while for various reasons. But it really got me thinking about where food comes from, the importance of the quality of food, learning a lot about farms and farming and gardening practices in the state of Florida. And then, there's a lot of other pieces in between that kind of led me into agriculture. But the short story is I really started seeing the connection between growing practices, food purchasing practices, and how those impact the ecology that I was very interested in. And it's really evident in Florida, as it is in most places, I'm sure. But here we have a really beautiful underwater aquifer system that's very close underneath our feet. And it's very affected by fertilizer runoff. And some of the most beautiful places we love to swim and kayak in and go see manatees and other wildlife are the springs. And they're very directly impacted by how much fertilizer is running off of farms and lawns. So there was a big connection there for me. And then that just kind of led to getting more interested in the local food and the farming and the seed saving component. The seed came later. That was, just another layer in the depth of learning about local food, is that I then was like, well, where do our seeds come from? And realized that most people purchase seeds from somewhere else. And why weren't we saving our own seeds? And started learning about varieties that were being lost and the importance of growing things in place and adapting them to your climate. And so that kind of started evolving maybe about 10 years ago or so. And as a pretty key component, the main thing that I do for my job now is working on seed saving and operating a community seed bank.
Well, one of the things we've been talking about on this episode earlier is the Heirloom Collard Project. That's something you're familiar with.
Yeah. I was actually, fortunately, one of the early folks to help get that off the ground. I probably came in a few years after it was officially a thing, but I've been helping from the early days, just kind of organize some of the efforts around preserving these varieties and the education outreach that goes around that. So yeah, that's a good example of one of the things that I've been able to work on that's really important for preserving old varieties. And that also was a nice tie-in to some of my work with Oak Spring Garden, and the farmers there were very interested in participating in that project. And I was able to kind of do two things that I love at once during one of my residencies when they had an heirloom collard component to one of their fall festival days. That was really fun.
Talk a little bit more about what you're doing at your farm, Mel. If you would, you mentioned seed saving is a major part of your daily routine now. Give us an idea of the acreage and the extent of seed saving, and specifically what seeds.
Mm-hmm. So we're kind of unique in that. So we're a nonprofit. So the organization that I founded and still work for is called Working Food. And we are a nonprofit. So we do a lot of different things and bring in our revenue in different ways than a typical farm would. So there's a lot of different things that our organization does. We have a youth program that works on educating kids and engaging them in food systems, literally from the seed to the plate. And we have a commercial kitchen program that supports small businesses in the community that are preparing food items. And then we have the seed program, which is what I focus on. And so, and they're all tied in together. So they don't exist in separate silos. They're all really nicely interwoven. But I grow on, it's actually a very small area. All collectively told, our 3 small gardens are less than half an acre. And we have other urban farms and farms that I have been able to get excited about seed saving and are willing to lend some space in their gardens or on their farms to help grow some of the varieties that we're looking to save seeds for. So it's more than just our small gardens that are producing the seeds, but a lot of times we don't really need that much space to grow some things out, depending on the crop. And then for the types of crops that we need a lot of space, like something like, corn or winter squash that sprawls all over the place, we'll see if some of our farm friends with more space can help us out. But our core gardens are actually located on the campus of another nonprofit called Grow Hub. That's a landscape nursery that's available. They sell plants to the general public 6 days a week and do a lot of cool things with adults with disabilities. And that's where our seed program lives. And so our gardens are there. Our actual physical seed bank where we temporarily store seeds before they go out is located there. All of our seed processing equipment. So we have to be able to get seeds off the plant and cleaned up nicely before they go into a packet. And so we have to screen them and winnow them and do germ tests and all that stuff before they get out to the public. And that is all located at this other location, Grow Hub, where our gardens are. So we're kind of in a few different places, but it's really not all that much space. And currently the seeds that we offer for sale, about 80%, 80 to 90% are all locally grown in our area, which is pretty exciting.
And which seeds would they be then that you offer for sale?
All kinds. Yeah, we mostly focus on crops that are edible, but we also really like our flowers and herbs and some of our medicinal plants. And of course, I'm very intrigued by plants that make nice pigments. So it's really everything. I mean, we have, with the focus on what grows well in our climate, that's really the key thing that we're trying to do is, Florida can grow a lot of things, but we can't grow a lot of the things that do grow in cooler climates that are in a lot of seed catalogs. So we really focus on stuff that's adapted to our sandy soils and high humidity and intense summers. So We've got a good collection of cowpeas and yard long beans, for example, sorghum, sweet peas, a little bit of corn, although we're trying to get away from that. It's not doing so well. Winter squash like Seminole pumpkin, all kinds of herbs, leafy greens do really well here. So really, I mean, most common garden veggies, if it's a type that does well here, we're working on it, and we might offer it. Obviously, we're very small. We can't offer everything, but what we do carry, people can be sure is going to do well in a hot, humid climate, and was probably grown by us or one of our grower partners.
Well, given your experience now in this field, Mel, I'm wondering what goals you're looking forward to in the future, given the acreage that you have, but also the cooperatives that you work alongside too. Do you have any sort of more global aspirations?
Not global. I think I really enjoy working at a small local scale. I like having relationships with farmers and gardeners and community members that are here, and that's really our focus is local work. That said, we do have a lot of southeastern and national partnerships with folks like Oak Spring, of course. I stay in touch with the farmers there. I work with Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. They're also up in Virginia, Seed Savers Exchange in Iowa, Organic Seed Alliance up in the Northwest. And having these relationships has been really helpful for us in me learning about all of this stuff and getting established and being able to connect with the greater community, mostly in our country, in the US, from folks that are doing similar things. And I would say, we do want to grow a little bit, but probably still staying within the state of Florida, at least, or our growing climate. And I think the growth would look more like being able to teach more farmers and gardeners about seed stewardship and the importance of being able to have access to local seeds for all the reasons that it's a good thing, growing stuff that does well for your climate, supporting those growers, being more self-sufficient in the face of challenges like COVID, when we, lost access to a lot of our seeds. Folks were scrambling to be able to find the seeds to grow the plants that they needed. So I would like to be able to engage more people in learning about how to grow and save seeds and bringing in more farmers and gardeners to help us do the work. But yeah, not global. I feel like it's interesting and we learn a lot from what's happening globally and nationally around seed issues, but we are really hyper-focused on our community and, somewhat extended radius around it.
Well, we spoke to Ira earlier in the podcast, Mel, and of course your partnership with Southern Seed Exposure was one thing we touched on. You have so much in common, the two of you.
Ira's amazing. Yeah, she's such a icon and inspiration for a lot of people like us that are doing this work. She's been doing it for so long, and she's just always been so generous of her time and sharing of her knowledge. And she's a key component of the Heirloom Collar Project. She's probably the one that really started it all, and we all jumped in because it was a cool project.
And finally, we're talking about from seed to sovereignty. That's the title of this month's episode, Stories of Farming, Art and Community. If you were to embrace all of those things and share a message of the importance of the work that you're doing and Ira and others in terms of, seed saving and food sovereignty, what would that message be, Mel, that you need to convey to the younger generation, the importance, the relevance of this work?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like anything, there's so many layers and it's complicated, but I think at its core, we all have a connection to food in some way. And even if it's just as simple as we need to eat, we have to eat food several times a day if we're lucky. And that food is coming from somewhere. And it's most ideal if we can be supporting people that are growing it locally so they can have livelihoods to also hopefully be producing that food in a clean way for their community that is respectful of the environment and the cultural food choices of the community that they live in. And, really that's what we depend on, is community growing food, and being able to support the people in our community that are doing that work is super, super important. And going that layer deeper into the seeds of local food's important, regional food's important, but sourcing those seeds locally is also important. And it's literally the foundation and the very starting point for almost everything that comes to our plate every day. And somebody's producing those seeds, and the fewer and fewer people that are doing that, and the fewer and fewer companies that are distributing the seeds, the more vulnerable we are. And it's very easy to save seeds. It can be very easy to grow plants too, depending on where you are and what you have. And I would encourage anyone to just be curious and try to grow something in a pot or in a small backyard garden or a community farm. And the plants do all the work saving the seeds. So it's really just learning about what to look for and how to support them. And if you've found it exciting and empowering to grow, your own tomato plant, it's even more exciting and empowering to save seeds from that tomato and then grow that again next year and the year after, and save those seeds to share with other folks. So it's important for so many reasons at the base level, just feeding us and supporting community through saving and sharing of seeds and recipes and food traditions.
From farm to table. Of course, that is so central to the mission of Oak Spring. Mel, thank you very much for joining us on this month's episode of the Oak Spring podcast. And we are now going to hop over to our YouTube channel, where you'll find some added bonus content of Mel and I in conversation. So join us there. But for the podcast, thank you again, Mel. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
It was fun. Thank you, Chris.
And that's it for this month's episode. Don't forget to visit our website for a lot more information on all the courses and programs here at Oak Spring. And that website address, of course, is osgf.org. And a reminder about signing up for the newsletter too. Email program@osgf.org, or there's a link on the website too where you can sign up. You can follow us on social media. At Instagram, we're at Oak Spring Garden Foundation. On X, we're at Oak_Spring, and on Facebook, just look for Oak Spring Garden Foundation. I'll be back next month, along with Danielle, for our Continuum segment, and of course, we'll have special guests who will talk about their work related to the Oak Spring Garden Foundation. My thanks again to our guests this month, Melissa Dessar and Ira Wallace, and to you for listening. Don't forget, of course, to share this with anyone you think might enjoy the show too. And I will be back next month for the September episode of the Oak Spring podcast. Goodbye for now.